Before I begin my talk, I want to take a minute to thank my teachers for coming out and supporting me, my classmates for showing up for me, and especially my dad for forcing me to expect the best out of myself. My talk is Consumerism, Beyond Buying, because I want you guys to understand the impacts of your choices. By a show of hands, how many of you guys own one of these? Congratulations, you just joined the exclusive 10 Million Buyers Club from January 1st, 2024 to April 26th, 2024. Okay, by a show of hands, how many of you guys have heard of this brand? Shein. If you've heard of this brand, then you've more than likely heard about its exploitative child labor practices. Shein is able to produce the same garments that companies like Abercrombie & Fitch put out on the market for $40, $50 for $8 to $12 because of their exploitative consumerist manufacturing practices. And how many of you guys are on one of these three social platforms? And keep your hands up if you have received targeted marketing campaigns from any of these platforms. Well, regardless of whether you raise your hand or not, you have absolutely received targeted marketing campaigns from these apps. You may ask yourself, if Mark Zuckerberg is one of the richest men in the world, competing with people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, why is Instagram free? The answer is, Mark Zuckerberg sells your data to third-party advertisers to curate the perfect page for you, to make you spend as much time as possible on his site, spend as much money as you can, and profit from your attention. Now, throughout my talk, I want you guys to consider this quote. "Consumption is the sole end and purpose of all production," by Adam Smith in 1776. Now, throughout my talk, I want to just get an idea of my audience. How many of you guys own a phone? Show of hands. I'll be honest, mine's right here. And how many of you guys replace that phone? How often do you replace your phone? Like, when was the last time you got a new phone? Sure. Over 55% of Americans replace their phones every 6 months. A shocking 25% replace it every year, and the remaining replace it 3 to 4 years later, when it might actually be obsolete. Now, the problem with our consumers' habits is the idea of planned obsolescence, when companies make their products intentionally obsolete after shockingly short periods of time. Take, for example, the clothing of Shein. Shein's clothing is known to rip apart or tear within 3 to 4 weeks of buying it, showing how deadly this behavior really is. Now, throughout my talk, I want to explore two core impacts: the environmental impacts of consumerism, the international effects of consumerism, and what we can do about the problem. Because I don't want to get up here and just spit facts at you. I want to give you actionable steps to prevent this problem in the future. Now, this is our Earth. As you may know, it sustains all life that we know of. And it is home to all life on this Earth. I'm standing on this Earth. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you guys think one Earth is enough to sustain our current consuming practices? Okay, no hands. What about 2 Earths? Okay, maybe 3 Earths? That's a lot of Earths, guys. What about 4? 5? Well, the answer is 5.2 Earths. At the rate we're currently consuming products, we would need 5.2 Earths to sustain human life. In fact, Statista reports that the human consumption will cause the Earth support systems to fail within 25 years. That might be the time that my child is up on the stage giving you guys a TED Talk. This might be the time where my child is graduating high school and getting accepted into his dream college. And that, most importantly, is within all of our lifetimes. In fact, the same report furthers that human life is predicted to be extinct within 30 years. Let that sink in for a minute. Within 30 years, all of us will be wiped off the face of the earth. Now, if we were to plot the entire history of the Earth onto a 12-month calendar year, humans came into existence about 37 seconds ago, and the Industrial Revolution happened about 0.2 seconds ago. And in that time, During the pause I just took, we decimated 1/3 of the Earth's resources. And with the population of the world setting to reach 9 billion and 10 billion extremely soon, it's only inevitable that their consumers' practices are just as bad, if not worse, than ours are, causing the Earth to be gone within less than 25 years. Now, how many of you guys in this room, by show of hands, are wearing jeans right now? Yeah. What if I told you that those jeans, for one pair of jeans, it took 1,800 gallons of water to produce? To put that into context, the average American family uses 300 gallons of water every single week. So that's 6 weeks of fresh water you're wearing on your legs. And if you're like me, then you probably have 3 to 4 pairs of jeans sitting in your closet at home. That's at least 3,000 gallons of water in your closet just collecting dust, many of which, due to planned obsolescence, will not even fit you in 6 months. It's funny because I was telling my mom last night that my jeans from my birthday last year, just around this time, are too small on me. And that is the direct result of planned obsolescence. They make these products that will not fit you in such short periods of time, so you can continually go back and buy more and more and more. As a result of this, I sent my mom my Gap card before she went to bed last night. Now, the real issue is our alienation to the problem. We don't see the millions of gallons being poured into clothing, into our meat. We don't see the lives being lost across the world. And especially, we don't see the impacts of consumerism. The United States alone, due to our consumers' practices, is responsible for 60% of the world's carbon emissions from one country alone. Now, if we don't see those effects, who does? Take the country of Chad. Chad is a northern African country, one of the largest on the continent, and home to over 18 million people. Lake Chad is Chad's primary water source, sustaining almost all lives in the country. This was a satellite image of Lake Chad in 1963, a robust lake that is home and supporting so many people. It's supporting the entire population of Chad, its animals, its biodiversity, and its ecosystems. 60 years later, in 2023, this is what Lake Chad looked like. Lake Chad, within 60 years, as a direct result of carbon emissions and global warming, because of our consumers' practices, lost 90% of its water mass. Lake Chad is no longer the country of Chad's primary water source. In fact, it's not a primary water source at all. People in Chad are thirsty, they're dying, and it's a direct result of the jeans that we buy every 6 months. It's a direct result of the phones that we replace every 6 months. And it's a direct result of our actions. Now, I touched on the environmental impacts of consumerism, but consumerism has real-life effects across the globe. This is the flag of the Democratic Republic of Congo, another African nation sitting in the middle of the continent. For the past 17 years, from 1999 to 2016, 6 million people were slain in the Congo due to a civil war being fought over its natural resources, primarily tungsten, cobalt, and coltan. Now, these products are being mined at an astonishing rate to provide for the light bulbs that are on in this room, our cell phones, our cameras, and especially our electronics. And with the rate that we're replacing them, these mines are set to go dry very, very soon. Not only this, but the Congolese miners are some of the most exploited people in the world. For a day's work, hauling 5 tons of cobalt on their backs, Congolese miners make up to $3.50 a day. Before I got on the stage, I went to the vending machines at this school, and I spent $3.50 on a bag of chips and a water bottle. That's an entire day's wage. But if they took those resources that they mined to the market, it should be yielding them $150,000 per ton. They should be richer than all of us in this room combined for a year's work of mining cobalt. But that's not all. The Congo, as I told you, has been the victim of armed conflict, being fought by private militias, other countries, the workers in the mines, and the foremen, all committing horrific acts of abuse upon each other. The Congo War was listed by Human Rights Watch as the most deadly conflict since World War II, and it's a direct result culture that we perpetuate. Now, I asked you at the beginning of my talk, how many of you guys know about Shein? Shein uses exploitative child labor practices to produce goods that can compete with any market across the globe, selling their products at extremely and astonishingly low prices. Now, we already know that they use sweatshops, but there are over 250 million sweatshop workers globally, many of which are children under the age of 16. Now, these workers are even more exploitated than those in the Congo. They make 3 cents an hour and often work 72 hours straight, not being paid for overtime, not being paid any pension or compensation, and working in some of the most horrific conditions that we've ever seen. Now, this effect is not just exclusive to sweatshop workers, it's a common theme across the globe. There's over 50 countries that use sweatshop labor. If you look at the tags on our Nike sweatshirts and our Nike pants, you'll see that many of them are made in like Vietnam or Guatemala. And that is where